good afternoon, or good morning to wherever you are zooming in from. I am not Rachel Messerick, the programs manager, legacy and editorial director for the American Craft Council. Unfortunately, Rachel is in labor, getting ready to have birth, so I will be stepping in as her host today. I am Gwen Rutherford-Smith, and I am the Director of Community and Creative Work with the American Craft Council, and I'm very pleased to welcome you all to this American Craft Forums program in association with the quarterly publication of American Craft Magazine. I'm speaking to you today not from, my home is in Asheville, North Carolina, but the American Craft Council is located in Minneapolis. And Minneapolis is located on the traditional ancestry and contemporary lands of the Dakota and the Ojibwe people. This place carries a complicated and layered history. In the thousands of years, the Dakota people have been in relationship and kinship with the land here. And in several hundred years since European settlers colonized the land that the state of Minnesota now occupies. The United States land seizure was a project of destruction that denied the Dakota free and unhindering access to land that fundamentally shapes their identity and their lives. We pay tribute to the Dakota and the Ojibwe and invite you to consider the land on which you live and the confluence of legacies that bring you to stand where you are, particularly through critical reflection and conversation with your own community. With that being located in Asheville, North Carolina, I'd like to also recognize that I currently reside on the land of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Nation. Fostering conversation and community are at the heart of ACC's mission, and American Craft serves as one of the most vital contributions and service to this mission, and hopefully to the field of craft and American culture. As we enter a new year, our world continues to change, and we continue to do what we can to meet this moment. This year, American Craft reflects on when and where this publication has at its best rooted in the present moment, shining a light on the diversity, resilience, beauty, and impact of American craft and its makers. In 2022, we look at craft through the lens of 4 themes: wonder, fashion, forge, and gather. The editorial team has plans well underway for our summer and fall issues, and we're excited to announce our 2023 themes: inhabit, vessel, wild, and collect. We encourage pitches and submissions from our community and have more information on the 2023 themes on our website. Please check under the writer's guidelines and submissions for more information. Before I dive into the program, and in my introduction, I also just want to take a moment to thank the ACC staff, particularly our editor-in-chief, Karen Olson, and our amazing marketing team, and our IT guru, Jason Samuels. The American Craft Council is a national nonprofit organization. As such, I would like to give a big shout out to our donors and members who make programs like this possible, and a very special thank you to the Minnesota State Arts Board and the Wingate Charitable Foundation for their generous support. A few technical and logistical reminders. Please make sure that your camera is off and your audio is muted for the program and conversation. We encourage you to participate in the talk via the chat feature and drop any comments or questions there. Closed captioning is available also during this program. On the bottom of your screen, you will see a CC symbol. Clicking that button will turn this feature on and off. This program will also be recorded and available for future viewing. In the spring issue, our craft version of the fashion issue, we take a deep look at fashion in a couple different ways. To fashion, to create something new, to use your hands, and fashion as a noun, the connection between craft and adornment. One of the pieces that we were most excited to present, and you'll see in the slideshow running now, addresses this connection between craft and couture fashion in a pretty direct way. Beautifully written by fashion scholar Jonathan Michael Square, The article Beloved Patches of Orange tells the incredible story of an amazing community of textile artists in the Gee's Bend and the Greg Lauren, the designer who wanted to flip the narrative by putting those artists who inspired him front and center in a collection about collaboration. In a nutshell, and leaving out the nuance that we'll explore in this conversation, the process starts with the scraps of leftover material from Greg's Los Angeles studio that gets bundled up and sent to the quilters in Gee's Bend. These quilters, these artists, who have been working together as a community for several generations, take the studio scraps and, using their unique and celebrated aesthetic, stitch them together into incredible swatches of pattern and color that then get transported back to Greg's studio and compiled or fashioned into stunning garments that have been presented in an exhibition at Bergdorf Goodman in New York and on the Paris runway. Even the name of the collection, Mosaic, which was a collaboration decision between Greg and the Gee's Bend artists, refers to the beauty of this partnership. And now I'd like to introduce a representative of an organization that played a major role in making this collaboration possible. Amanda Lee is the Director of Brand Strategy and Sourcing at Nest, a nonprofit supporting the growth of a more equitable creative economy. I'd like to invite Amanda to take the screen to talk a little bit more about Nest and to introduce the Gee's Bend quilters participating in this program. Thanks, Amanda.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Looking at that beautiful slideshow just gives me chills all over again. I'm Amanda Lee. I am Nest Director of Brand Strategy and Sourcing. Nest has been working very closely with the Gee's Bend community and Greg on this beautiful collaboration. Again, looking at those photos just reminds me of many months ago when we started the initial conversation with Greg, and it just brings me such great joy, and it really truly is an honor to be able to participate in this conversation today. So thank you, American Craft Council, for inviting us. I just wanted to share a quick background on Nest before we dive in, about our work generally, and then also more specifically with this very special community of Gee's Bend. We were founded in 2006 by our founder, Rebecca Van Bergen. This was the same year that Mohammed Yunus actually won the Nobel Peace Prize for microcredit. Nest embraced this idea and really began to work with female artisans in the form of micro bartering, whereby loans are paid back via product. A few years later, Nest began to engage more deeply and really kind of began our journey with brand partners and connecting them directly with artisans so they're able to build collections together in a very creative and responsible way. Fast forward a few years to 2015, Nest really wanted to formalize this maker and artisan network and began the Nest Artisan Guild. This is an open access for artisan businesses all around the world to receive free learning opportunities, mentorship opportunities, and also brand sourcing and market access opportunities. In 2018, we looked a little bit deeper within the maker movement within the US, and we really wanted to be able to provide a program that really emphasized makers of colors and being able to provide them programs such as business training and market access opportunities for them to be able to develop and grow their businesses. 2021 was a very special year for us. We started working with the Gee's Bend quilting community a couple years prior, but 2021 really marked the start of successful brand collaborations, starting with a brand out in San Francisco. And this also was the year that 10 G's Ben Quilters launched their very first Etsy shop, by which over $300,000 was directly generated to the quilting community within the matter of a few short months. And those shops continue to grow. Additional quilters have also joined. And this is a way that a lot of the quilters are able to sell their products directly to G's Ben admirers worldwide. And then in 2022, in addition to supporting the influx of over $500,000 to the G's Ben quilting community, Nest is also reaching over 280,000 artisans in 120 countries around the world. So with that, I just want to say thank you again. It is my absolute privilege to be here and to be able to introduce my friends and a daily source of inspiration for me, and I know a lot of you. So I'd love to pass the microphone to the quilters, who I think are all together. So Stella Mae Petway, Emma Mooney Petway, and Mary Margaret. If you want to say hello.
Hello.
Hi. Stella, you're on my left. I don't know if you guys just want to go from left to right, but if you wanted to say hello to everyone and maybe just a little bit about yourself.
Hello, I'm Stella Petway. I'm a third generation quilter, and I just love using different colors of fabric. I like to sew at night and all during my free time. I just love to do it.
Hello, my name is Emma Mooney Petway, and I just want to say thanks to Gwen and Amanda for such a great introduction. And I love cooking.
Well, I'm Mary Margaret Petway. I was the 2018 Fellows, Heritage Fellows. I am presently board chair for the Souls Grown Deep Foundation. I am a quilter, third generation, of course, I'm fourth generation or more, but I'll stick with third. And as you can see, I like hand piecing also. I piece by hand sometimes, and I do quilt. I enjoy it.
Thanks so much for joining us. Looks like you're working on something nice there, Mary Margaret.
Oh yeah, I'm doing a little quilt for somebody who's very special to me. Yellow is not my most favorite color, but I will work with any color possible.
I'm excited to see the outcome.
Well, it's nice to meet the three of you, and Amanda, thank you so much. And thanks, Nest, for all that you do to support artists and the creative economy. And we welcome Mary Margaret, Stella Mae, and Emma. We'll see you all back on screen in just a moment. But for now, I'd like to take this quick opportunity to introduce both Jonathan Michael Square and Greg Lauren. If you'd both like to join me on screen, that would be wonderful. Jonathan is the assistant professor of Black visual culture at Parsons School of Design. He has taught at the University of Pennsylvania, the Fashion Institute of Technology, and most recently, Harvard University. He has a PhD from New York University, an MA from the University of Texas at Austin, and a BA from Cornell University. A proponent in the power of social media as a platform for radical pedagogy, he founded and runs the digital humanities project, Fashioning the Self in Slavery and Freedom, which explores the intersection of fashion and slavery. While serving as a fellow at the Costume Institute, Square will work on a book manuscript on the same topic, tentatively titled Negro Cloth, How Slavery Birthed the Global Fashion Industry. Jonathan, welcome today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Greg Lauren is a fashion designer who, when he launched his eponymous men's and women's label in 2011, was on a mission to create clothing from the perspective of being an artist. Known for artisanal collections, he's been reimagining and redefining classic archetypes in making handcrafted clothes out of damaged and upcycled fabric since the inception, and when his team in Los Angeles. Mosaic, the G's Bend and Greg Lauren, is a collaboration between 14 quilters from G's Bend and Greg Lauren, celebrating the ingenious artwork by the women of this community. So welcome, Greg, as well to this conversation.
Thank you, Gwen. It's so amazing to be here. Just want to take a second to say thank you to the American Craft Council, to you, to Karen. I think we all should send some amazing energy to Rachel, who is in the moment in the middle of the most incredible creation herself. So we're sending positive vibes. I want to thank Mary Margaret, Stella, and Emma, and the other, what is now 15 quilters that we've had the gift of collaborating with on this amazing project. A very heartfelt thank you to Jonathan, which is what has brought this particular group together. Your words are art, they're stunning, and it's such a special relationship. Your academic and creative guidance has been so integral to shaping this project. Amanda, Nest, I mean, you literally have built a bridge to creatives finding and working together in an equitable way, and it's incredible what the potential is with what you've created. I like to do a shout out to my team here in Los Angeles, my team of amazing makers who worked with the quilters to create these pieces, and a special shout out to two dear friends, teachers, and thought leaders who were such an important part of this. A woman named Tabitha St. Bernard Jacobs and my dear friend George McPherson, who were instrumental in this project happening and remaining true to its intention. So those are just a few shout outs, and seeing that slideshow is just literally, it's emotional because it took me right back to the beginning and those incredible images and the storytelling. A huge thank you to Joshua Simmons and Menelik Purier for that wonderful communication of the work. So thank you, and it's so great to be here.
That's great. Why don't we go ahead and bring Amanda and the G's Bend artist back up on screen. And I'm Jonathan. I'm going to turn it over to you to get the conversation started.
Great. Well, I first have to echo Greg and start off with just expressing gratitude. Thank you, Karen, the editor-in-chief of American Craft and the Craft Council. I have to thank Rachel, who's here in spirit in the middle of giving birth as we speak. I want to thank Amanda. I want to thank, Mary Margaret, Stella May, Emma. Thank you all for being here. And of course, I love chatting with you, Greg. It's always a treat being in conversation with you. So, I'm not going to take up too much of the floor because I know the real reason that people are here is to hear Mary Margaret, Emma, and Stella May. But before I hand over the floor to you all, I just want to say that, G's Bend is often evoked and it's often referenced. But people want to hear you speak. They want to hear more about the community from your own words. So I'm wondering, just to start off, could you just tell us how would you describe G's Bend, like your community in your own terms?
Which one, or all three of us?
All three, go for it.
Okay, well, I'll go first. G's Bend is what I would say is a settled community, even though it took me 50 plus years to figure out I was living in an artist colony, okay? This is a place where if your child leaves from home, you don't have to worry about them because we will bring them back to you. It may be the end of the evening, but we'll bring them back. We are, as I say, very settled here, slow moving. And that's all I can think about.
Okay, to me, G's Bend is what I would call a small knit town community, right? And you can look at it as everyone in the community as family. Because when I was growing up, if I did something wrong to my neighbor house, I got that same whooping I would get if I was at home. So we didn't have the problem of one getting mad with the other about beating the child for doing wrong. And we grew up that way, and it made us closer together because here in this community, I think we are very close, and everybody just live happy, got a lot of joy.
Well, for me, I go way back. Yeah, I've come at a time when there was no electric light, no running water in our houses. So now, you know, I can say we are a thriving community and we are doing much better. At that time, we didn't get a say. It was only the grown up who made all of the decisions. It was like, well, we didn't know what to do or how to say, but now this generation, they know what they want and what they are going to do or either try. But now, back then, we just did all, whatever our parents would do, we did it. But now, growing up, at that time, I was taught to make quilts and how to use all of the old fabrics and stuff there was not much old stuff that was left around. To be honest, the way we made quilts, it was if you had an old relative who had died or passed on and had maybe some good stuff, clothes left about, and you would give them maybe an old dress or maybe a pair of pants and stuff, you use that to make your quilt from or get as far as you can, you know, can sew. It was not really much, but now I can get a hold of a lot that I can sew on. In the past, I have quilts now way back from the 70s that I have not completed because I didn't have the fabric to do that. I hope I'm not talking too much, but I get excited when I look back and think about the things that my mother taught me when she didn't have anything to work with and she wanted me to learn to sew and I didn't want to do it. But now I just enjoy, you know, the type of quilt she taught me to make because she didn't have much fabric. She didn't see that well and she didn't like cutting small things anyway. And going back to this, we didn't have scissors anyway to cut. We had to use maybe a nail or an old knife to just punch holes into cloth. And that's why now you see, I do a lot of triangles. At that time, we was making triangles, but we didn't know it. But when you punch this cloth and you rip it apart, it would kind of rip into a triangle shape. And we didn't know, people oftentimes would cut it as a pattern and put it aside to use it for later, but we never knew we were making triangles until later. But now my mother taught me, you know, a couple of different quilts to make from old little fabrics and stuff. At that time, quilts were much smaller and shorter than they are now. Yeah, we can make them larger. And now the young children, just like my niece, I'm teaching that, well, she knows how to make quilts now, but their colors are so much different from mine. They choose their different colors, you know, they like different colors, all bright color, but me, I like to do old stuff, new, and I'll just mix it up. Let me leave for somebody else.
Well, I'm gonna copy off of Greg here. And he always refers to G-Spin as a community of artists, and you are a community of artists. Though you're often referred to as a collective, you each have your own aesthetic and your own practice. And I'm wondering if you could just describe like the colors that you gravitate towards, your particular form of quilting that you like. Each one.
Well, for me, I like red, blue, and purple and black and blend it in together. When I'm doing my quilts, I like to lay it together and sew it and see what it look like. And then I come in with that fourth color to change the whole thing. Yeah, when you get the three colors together, you keep working that on and on, it begin to look exactly alike. So you have to get something to break that pattern. So I either would put in a real dark color or a bright color to break my pattern. Okay.
Well, you see, what I like, the background drop is mostly what I like. This is my quilt. And I just like working with all colors, but I love the bright colors and using the bright colors. Sometimes I will tone it down with a darker color. If that's the mood that I be in. Sometimes I be in this happy mood and everything just flowing this way or that way. And when I'm in kind of just a slow mood, I use like some darker color types of prints and stuff. I like dealing with prints too, putting them in my quilt. But this is my favorite behind me. those bright color bring me a lot of joy. And when I sit and be talking with my children or my grandchildren, and they start talking about quilting or making a quilt, and they would ask me about what is my favorite color, I always love red, white, and black. But I tell them to pick a color, and then we work from there, you know, with whatever color they do, because I think whatever color you put together, if your heart is in it, it's gonna be beautiful.
And I'm totally different. I love it all. I even like plaids. I like the browns, you know, I love it all. It doesn't make a difference to me. If it looks too plain, I'm gonna put a little something different in there to brighten it up. Be it green, which is my most favorite color. I love all shades of green. Or a splash of orange, a bright blue, a piece of red, you know, it really is not a difference. You know, if I can, my thing is, Mother Nature has the best palette in the world, okay? And I'm glancing out the window right now, and I see a bright green, which the trees are blooming, but I also see a brown house. And it actually goes together, you know? And those are two colors, if you're thinking about it and not looking at it, they really don't go together, but in nature they do. So guess what? They go together. So yeah, I like it all.
And at this point, I would love to loop Greg into the conversation. I'm wondering, when did you learn about G-Spin? And I want you to talk a little bit about your working relationship with them.
Wow, well, so first of all, what you just heard and what we just heard, I mean, that's the inspiration for this collaboration. Those words, that approach that each of you just shared it's so remarkable. And I'm jumping ahead to things that I know that we'll get to, but it's just that pure artistry and that courageous and bold use of color, but an approach that has such a clear, confident vision for the art. That's really what ultimately inspired the collaboration and the pieces that we made, because I always strive to reimagine the normal and do something differently with a fresh twist, a new twist. And I can't think of any art that does that more beautifully and more successfully than each of your work and the way you just described your approach. It's so natural. When I officially really, learned about G-Spin, it was interesting because I feel like I had been exposed to it subconsciously as an artist, as a designer, as somebody who appreciated quilts and was exposed to quilts my entire life. But it really happened in 2020 when, after a number of transformative conversations with teachers and academics and people like yourself, Jonathan, it led to a real examination of the roots of some of the inspirations that I use, that other designers use, that are so ubiquitous in the fashion industry. And I really, really wanted to take a look at some of our inspirations seen through the lens of how to be more accountable as a designer. And I was doing some research on quilts, and I came across this incredible quilt by a G-Spin quilter named Creola Bennett Petway. It was made in 1949, happened to be red and white, but the shapes and the geometry were so amazing. It was called Half Log Cabin Variation. And I knew that I had seen this image somewhere, and I was seeing it with fresh eyes, but I walked over to my wall, which I think everybody who's watching today has their inspiration wall, their artist wall. And there was a pile of printouts that were taped onto the wall. And I was like, oh my God, it was remarkable. There it was, a kind of slightly blurred, low res printout of that quilt that I had found maybe a couple of years earlier from a Google search on red and white quilts. And it was that moment that I truly, truly discovered G-Spin. And the difference is I no longer just saw quilts and colors and designs, but I saw these brilliant individual artists, not just a community as you mentioned, but the individual work. And I saw not only their work, I saw stories, I saw families, I saw the history of the community. And as I dove further into the work, I felt like I was suddenly learning so much about quilting that I'd never seen before. I was exposed for the first time, even though I think we all, the fashion industry, owes a huge debt to the workwear quilts that Gee's Bend is known for, and as far as I know, invented and was part of making that something that is out of necessity elevated to an art form. And with sustainability and quilt making and patchworking being such a part of the fashion consciousness now, it was just, I suddenly was like, wow, this community needs to be seen. I want to know more. I want to learn more. I want to learn more from the quilters. And it was also something that I was going through as a designer and as an artist. And I start to have thoughts, it's not okay to be inspired by or to use the designs or materials or ideas of other artists unless they're involved in the decision from the beginning and benefit mutually throughout the process. And I really became committed to this idea as a designer that my work and what we do at this studio has to benefit not only those customers that buy it, the stores that sell it, but the actual artists who contributed to the inspiration. And it was at that moment that I had no doubt if we did it correctly, and I knew that we would with the help of Souls Grown Deep and obviously with Nest, that this could not only shine a spotlight on this incredible work of each and every artist from the community that got involved, but we had an opportunity to create a model of how to work with artists correctly, equitably, and that's really where it began. That's kind of the rest is history, as you could say. I don't know if one of the quilters want to speak, but I can share how we began the process, but I'd love to, to throw it back to them at this point.
Yeah, let's talk about the actual collaboration. And Greg, you can jump in, or Mary Margaret or Stella May or Emma, you can jump in, but walk us through sort of the early stages of the collaboration. Like how are you connected? Tell us about, your decision to use fabric from your atelier, etc.
Well, Mary Margaret, or I don't know. Go ahead.
Stella, okay. Yeah. This collaboration we were kind of nervous going in because we didn't know what to expect. Usually people would tell us what they wanted. Greg gave us free will. We ran wild with the material that he sent. Oh man, he got great designs. I mean, I think some of the first ones are the best, actually. He got strips here, little corner pieces there, triangles over there. He's gotten some of the best. We love Greg. I think I can speak for everybody down here that's in this collaboration with him. We love Greg. We are waiting on another project with Greg.
And we will continue doing so much more. What Mary Margaret was speaking to, first of all, it started with a phone call, a Zoom that Mary Margaret was on along with Amanda and the team from Souls Grown Deep. And in terms of the collaboration, what was most important, I think, as Mary Margaret said, was, is everybody interested in doing this? Is everyone inspired by it? Is this something that would be interesting? Is this okay to see my goal and our goal was to create a project where the artists, these 3 women and 11 others, and one beautiful quilter who, may she rest in peace, Minnie May, the idea was, you tell us what you need. We don't want this to be something where we come in and assume that we know what you want, what you need. How is this going to fulfill not only your needs as a community, but fulfilling as an artist? And so that was the first step. And then once Mary Margaret spelled it out very clearly. It really set the tone for the entire collaboration. Very clearly, Mary Margaret said, we need revenue and jobs because we love what we do. And we love making quilts, and we love, love, love doing this. And if we can earn by doing it, then we're off to a great start. The second part was not only recognition to the community, but individual recognition to each quilter who this has been so long overdue and deserved. But as you mentioned, every single quilter in the community is an individual artist with their own style, own technique, and own voice. And the quilts are all worthy of hanging on a wall next to great paintings from the art historical timeline. But that was the first part. And then the final part was, can we create a model that other designers and brands and or organizations can follow to work with the community? And it had to be something where at every step of the way, we not only centered the community, but turned to them for decisions. We didn't move forward on any step of the process without consent, without approval, with ideas. I mean, the community came up with the name Mosaic. I think you put it to a vote, and there were a number of ideas, and we settled on Mosaic, and it's such a beautiful name because it says it all. But and the label, we went right back to the community, and Mary Margaret, we said, can someone from the community, from one of the artists, design the logo that represents this? And Mary Margaret did two hand-drawn pieces that we then turned into the logo. That is the label and symbol of the collaboration. I happen to have, even though it was supposed to be sent down, this is where it all began. Does this look familiar? This is the swatch book that we made at our studio that was filled with all of our, I won't do it justice, but it's just filled with every fabric that we had either scraps of, extra bolts of. That's part of our GL Scraps initiative. We use all of the extra fabric and the cutting wastage from all of our pieces that we cut. And so we've done our own version of patchworking those pieces together, which as I said, a complete debt to all of the work of Gee's Bend and other quilters, in the United States. But that's where it started. And it was so much fun to send down this swatch book and just to hear from the quilters what they wanted. And as each of you said, I was struck by how everyone chose everything, bold colors, fabrics. And, this has got nylons in it, it's got velvets in it, it has tweeds, it has everything that we've ever made. And I said, this will be interesting to see. And I was pleasantly surprised and tickled when every single quilter wanted to try something interesting, some interesting combination, which speaks, of course, to the approach and aesthetic that we know Gee's Bend for.
And this is a really small detail, but I think it's really important. When the quilters sent their coats back to your atelier, they were identified with fabrics with their names on it, and you actually incorporated each of the quilters' names into the garments, which I thought was a really beautiful detail.
It was essential. I mean, it's something that was never even a question. First of all, and I think that became clear that we always knew we would find a way to recognize the individual quilters. But one of the first meetings that we had, which was as breathtaking as a Zoom can be. I don't know if everyone remembers, but the first Zoom we had was when each of you shared panels that you had started to make, just to kind of see if it was feeling the way we all wanted it to feel. But each of you also then shared the story of that panel, where you might have learned that pattern, where a little bit of history. And it was so incredible first of all, it was mind blowing to see what you had created from our scraps. I know those fabrics like the back of my hand for years, some of them. And it was like I was seeing them for the first time, the way tweeds were combined with bright colors. And, Mary Margaret, like when you mentioned, brightening something up with some improvisational use of color. Emma, the way you talk about, using bright colors, and Stella May, your love for color combinations, that was so clear from every panel that was held up to the computer. And as best as I could see it through the computer camera, it was moving just from that moment. And it was clear that my job was literally to let these panels speak and to try to find silhouettes that allowed them to sing, if you will, and allow these panels to really shine and figure out how to do that. And yes, it was, we had every quilter send a number of their signatures, which was done mostly with just simple Sharpie or a pen on a piece of organic muslin. And every piece has the name of the quilter who contributed to that piece stitched into the piece. There are a couple of new pieces behind me that I can't really, but like right here, for example, is one of the quilters' names. Back here is another one. Here's Mary Margaret right here on this sleeve of this dress. So So every single garment has the signature of the quilter on it. And for the original installation, we also stitched the bio of each quilter into the lining of every piece so that whoever was lucky enough to own a piece or to buy a piece or have a piece would be surrounded by the story of each quilter.
I love that. That's beautiful. I mean, Mary Margaret, you said, we love working with Greg. And I have to echo that. We love working with Greg. But I'm wondering, could you talk a little bit more about the experience of working with textiles from Greg Lawrence Atelier?
Oh, man. This, like I said, we've had people to come into the community and collect quilts, right? With the promise, oh, we'll be back, we'll send all our friends. They never did. Okay, they might have gotten one piece, they might have got 3, but they never came. They never recommended us. Greg is the one artist that I do know that upheld his promise in the sense that he gave us the recognition that I'm growing to feel that we deserve as artists. And also he paid us, and he took those pounds and he didn't do a quilt. He created something totally different. You know, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, right? So it was a time down here. We were really poor, right? It was a time down here that everybody wore patches. Nobody was ashamed, you know? Came to school with shoes on. If they had a hole, so what? Somebody else had a hole in theirs too. But, you know, now it is, it's just so much different. And it feels good for an artist to recognize my work and everybody else's work in G-Spin, to create the things that he does create. I wouldn't know how to get out of his mind, but I would love to get into his mind to see what is driving him, you know? So, but that's the way it is.
Well, when I first started with the collaboration with Greg, wow, when I see all the different fabric that he sent, I'm like, could I do this? Should I do this, or should I back out of this? And just looking at the fabric, sitting there in my sewing room, just looking at the fabric, it was just like talking to me. It was talking back to me as I was talking to myself. And I know I went crazy, but as I was talking to myself, seemed like the fabric was talking back to me, telling me, this is you, you can do this. And so I pick up one piece and I said, no, this wood is not working. Then I pick up the velvet piece. I'm getting kind of afraid what I was saying to myself. And I said, now, with God, anything, everything is possible. So I look at that fabric, I said, if anyone else can do this, I can do it. And so I started just with a little scrap piece, putting it together. Then I say, I'm wondering whether Greg gonna like this piece. I'm like, I'm gonna be disappointed, but I'm not gonna be disappointed because I know by doing this and doing it from my heart and doing my best, it'll work out. So every night I would go in there and just start something, not knowing which way it may go, but I was praying that whatever way it goes, they will love it. And he showed that he loved the work that we did. And I'm so thankful that he chose us.
Well, for me, it was just exciting to see my own little box come in with the fabric, that some of the color that I had chosen. But it was like, how can I do it? What can I do? And then I started looking at the measurement. I said, this is a place to start from. Look at the measurement. Then I made a little block and I just kept letting it get bigger and bigger. And finally it got to be that size. I said, oh, it's coming. I'm like, Emma, I began to talk to myself. It's like, you know, I talk so much that I'm working by the window on my bed. I would like pull the curtain and look out and see if anybody coming past my window so they wouldn't hear me. But it was fun. Even while I was cutting and sewing, I got so motivated and carried away. When I looked up, I had cut up my favorite sheet. Cut it up. It just really, it's a mess. You should see it. But I still kept it. But I just love talking with the other people, you know, about the other quilters and looking at our work together. It was fun, especially when Mackenzie came down. We was all just like one big family. So I enjoyed it. I hope we can get more.
Yeah.
I mean, what strikes me is the mutual respect that's radiating from you all. I mean, and this is a question for everyone. I'm wondering what you all learned from each other and maybe how this collaboration can be a model for other ethical partnerships.
Well, for me, I learned the communication that we had among each other. It was great. Sometimes you can't get communication to work when you're doing a project or you trying to do something together. But we all came together, discussed this project, and we made it work, and it was just fun. You know, everybody had their way of doing things, and all of us got a different art form. But when we talk about it and put things together, it all worked out. So it was just fun.
And for me, we all met on time. We were here and we just had a great time talking together. Although we put our blocks together, look at it, we had a great time just meeting here together. It gave us something to do. And it was different. All of the young, especially for me, because I was getting with all of the younger quilters again, because I go way back. I'm one of the older quilters. So it was good meeting all of the young quilters and getting together.
Well, for me, it brought back memories of a time when we used to visit each other's houses and sit down and actually have a cup of coffee and start quilting on some, whoever quilt was up, you know, pre-pandemic, so to speak. So it was all good. There were no fusses. Everybody communicated well. If they didn't have enough of one color, they would ask somebody else and they would actually get it. So, I mean, you know, it was just we're community people, but we acted more like a family then than at any point lately. So it actually brought us together a little bit more. Yeah.
You know, for me, I think that fashion with a capital F, or the industry, it's such a wonderful time seeing there's so many designers and creatives in fashion now who understand the need more than ever to create from a responsible, conscious place. And I think that is often scary for some businesses because it might affect the business. It might affect the bottom line. It might affect, you know, fashion is a fairly exploitative industry. When creatives come together with a purity of intention and are aligned, and everyone comes to it with a mutual respect and an understanding that we're all working on something together, it's truly incredible. And I think that this project is an example, and I hope that, I know this one will continue. I hope that others, I couldn't be more excited to see the collaboration that just happened between the quilters in the community with Chloe, the amazing brand. I mean, there's incredible opportunity for fashion to continue shining the light on and working in the right way with incredible artists all over the world, and communities like G's Bend, because there's been this relationship. It's just in the past, it was often not done in the right way. It was more of a see something, be inspired by it, take it, and move on. And I just learned so much about how the gift of respecting each other and artists working together, and there is room for everybody to shine. And the more that you let everyone shine in a collaboration, the stronger and more powerful that is. And I learned so much artistically. I just forced myself as a designer. I learned the benefit of just taking myself out of it and decentering myself and getting out of my head and just allowing the work of the quilters to speak, learning techniques. I mean, again, they're not things that I could do. It was about appreciating it. I mean, it was so synonymous with what we do in terms of contradictions of materials and ideas and images, but to see it come to life with the fabrics was just magical. It spoke so much to what we're trying to do and sort of change the way people see things and actually affect the way they look at the world around us. I mean, these scraps became these incredible pieces of art that we just were vessels for, to allow to suddenly have movement and walk on individuals who in part brought them to life. I mean, that's the beauty, that these things are walking and breathing and living on people as we speak. I mean, the success of the collaboration, and a huge thank you to Bergdorf Goodman, who understood what this collaboration meant. And again, with the permission of the quilters, that we showcase this in a retail space, really allowed for, I think, the collaboration to go all the way, to say, we're going to take this art, take this respect, take this equitable collaboration, and put it right off of Fifth Avenue in New York, so that people could walk in and experience it and immerse themselves in it and leave with pieces. And we see pictures of these pieces all over now, and they're out in the world and with people, just loving to wear the art.
Yeah, and speaking of the ethics of collaboration, I mean, this is an ongoing collaboration. We see some like the newest pieces right behind you. So, I mean, you didn't simply dip in the community and dip out. Like, this is an ongoing sort of relationship. So what do we have to look forward to in the future?
Well, right behind me are pieces from the second iteration of the collaboration. And this was fun. This had a different kind of approach and a different kind of rollout, because the first one was all about, I mean, the amount of panels for the first version, 276 panels were made that we turned into roughly 98 garments and accessories, bucket hats, tote bags, recovered shoes. I mean, it was incredible. And that was really, we wanted to really have an impactful launch. In order to have longevity and sustainability for the collaboration, the idea was, well, how do we do that? And so again, I asked the community if they would be willing to try something, which was a lot of fun. Let's see what happens when we apply the art form and the ingenuity of the quilters with not control, but a little bit of inspiration or direction. And so we were doing a lot of black and white formal pieces in the collection, in the larger collection. And so I asked the quilters if they'd be open to doing some panels that were just using black and white. Whatever the fabric was, do whatever you want, but black and white. And then we were also exploring a lot of pieces using natural dyes, whether it was indigo, coral. I mean, we do a lot of that. And so the indigo, which you see behind me, was a natural fit for the pieces, but we sent down PFD fabrics, which are just prepared for dye, blank whites and creams and anything that was dyeable. And I said, I promise you, the quilting and the stitch work and the pattern is what will bring these to life. So it was an interesting challenge that I think the quilters were excited about, because it just offered a new avenue of creativity. I'm not sure how you all felt, but it was different than having a palette of colors to work with. I don't know, maybe you can, I hope it was as much fun as I think it was.
Well, it was a little different. But guess what? That took me to a place that I've been before, in the sense that back when I was living with my mother, and she was still living, we used to do what we call piecing the back of a quilt. And when you're doing that, you're piecing the lining, right? So you have different size pieces of muslin. Everything is the same color, but you got to make it in a square or whatever shape you want the quilt to be in. So yeah, so that's where that took me back to. I don't know about the other ladies, but it did. It's just on a smaller scale.
This is the result of that. This was all made from PFD fabrics that we hand dyed here using natural indigo extract. And what's incredible about all the pieces that were made from this is is that you really see, without knowing, it's sort of a planned accident, beautiful imperfections, which is something that we embrace, which G's Ben quilters embrace. And so every different fabric captures the dye differently. And it was just a beautiful way to highlight the actual quilting technique without it being about the fabric or the color. I mean, these are stunning pieces in their own right. They were stunning before we dyed them, and the dye just brings out the natural beauty.
Yeah, it does.
So we wanted to use our fall collection as a new kind of platform to offer the pieces to more of our wholesale partners. So the idea there was to take it beyond an installation. And we had so many requests after the first one. I thought, well, we can really expand this model by actually doing fewer styles and offering it to everyone to see who would be interested in carrying it in their stores. And we have stores all over the world now who have wanted these pieces. So the expansion, both in terms of the revenue, recognition, and a model that now goes into a kind of wholesale concept that others can use is exciting about this. And we're getting a tremendous, I know I shared it before, but because we work with a lot of visible individuals out there, whether they're entertainers or athletes, we do a lot of custom work and we get a lot of incoming requests. And it was really exciting. I think I can share this, but an amazing NBA player named Joel Embiid decided, he reached out to us to see if he could wear. He chose to wear one of the hoodies, which has about 18 different small quilted patches done by the quilters. That was what he chose to wear in a very visible, high-profile television commercial. So that was exciting. And fingers crossed, but I think everyone here knows and loves Questlove. He's nominated for an Oscar this weekend for a documentary called Summer of Soul. And I think he's the front runner to win. So my fingers are crossed. But we used the leftover black and white panels to create a custom piece for him as well. So the intention, so he will be wearing that to the Oscars this week, and it's official. One of the most beautiful things that I like to hear is when they opened the box in New York. A woman named Rebecca Pietri, who is a beautiful creator and artist. She said she cried when she opened the box when she saw the names of the quilters and the piece itself. And then of course it was music to my ears when I said, how'd the fitting go? And in all caps, she wrote, perfect. So that means he will be wearing it on Sunday. So we'll keep our eyes out for that. But that speaks to how this collaboration is growing in ways that we don't even know beyond the model, but truly as a result of how the fashion industry works and has the potential to spread a message.
Well, that's just beautiful and inspiring. So thank you all for sharing. I'm wondering if anyone has any questions. I haven't been paying attention to the chat, but if you have any questions, either for Mary Margaret, Stella May, or Emma, or Greg Lauren, please put them in the chat.
And Jonathan, I've captured a few of those, so we'll just start at the top if that works for you all. The first question actually comes from Randy, and she wanted to know what advice you would give young designers as they enter into their career. So I don't know if the G's Ben ladies have any advice, or Greg, if you have any advice for young designers.
Well,
As a designer, I think and I think that this collaboration speaks to this more than anything. A lesson that I learned early on that I was lucky to learn was tell the story that you are uniquely qualified to tell. And that usually is your story. And so if you can get out of the way and not worry about what you think others want to see, what you think will sell, there's room for that. There's room for those kinds of decisions, but there is always room for talent, hard work, and a story, and a personal story that if you really tell that story through execution and craft, it will resonate on a universal level. So work hard. We're learning until the day we're no longer here. So continue learning, continue seeking, practice learning techniques, continue to get better at the craft of making things or designing things or sketching, but it goes hand in hand with really digging deep and telling that story that is yours, that no one else can tell better than you.
Beautiful. Ladies, do you have any pieces of advice for starting designers?
Well, my advice would be, don't be too hard on yourself. Give yourself time to learn your craft, and you will get better at it as you work on it. Don't criticize yourself too much. Just work hard and learn everything you can.
Beautiful. Great. All right.
Right.
Another
My
question.
advice,
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
my advice is do you. If it looks good to you, I guarantee you it's gonna look good to somebody else.
That's great. Anything else, ladies? I don't want to cut you off again by accident.
I got a big mouth, I think.
No such thing. This is great. Someone wanted to better understand the panels that are quilted by Gee's Bend quilters. How do they go from panels to garments? Do the quilters have input on what their panels will become or made into? And then there's a lot of questions just kind of about how that, Greg, maybe how you decided if the quilters don't have the ability to give you input on what those panels should become, how you decided to turn those different panels into different pieces.
So that's a great question. Thank you. So when I first started designing clothing, it was really as an artist, and I was creating clothing from the perspective of being an artist. And most of the pieces that the very first jacket that I ever made was using the paint splattered stained drop cloth from my art studio, because I was so excited to make something, hadn't gotten any fabric yet. And I looked down and it was so beautiful to me because it had my whole story of my life in the studio and being a painter. And so from the very beginning, I had developed a practice that was unique and difficult. And I broke a lot of needles, many needles, trying to sew jackets, tailored pieces out of fabrics that were not normally used for garments. And that included things that were like vintage US Army duffel bags and not just workwear, but work pieces. Anything that I found beautiful that had been discarded, I would deconstruct and literally treat like fabric. So you might have seen me back in the day on the floor of my studio holding a pattern piece, a true pattern piece, over a remnant or piece of something that I deconstructed. Didn't matter to me if it had zippers, grommets, hardware. I just figured out a way to cut around that. And it allowed me to really pick and choose these beautiful things that for me at the time were the story and the soul of these vintage materials. With the panels, that was just a very elevated luxury for me to be able to work with such. It was actually difficult because everything was so beautiful and is so beautiful. But that process is something that I'd become very familiar with, which was even from using vintage materials, just letting the material speak to me. So what we did is the panels were not fully quilted. So what the one thing we had agreed on was that the panels that were sent back were different sizes. They were quilted with the design, but they were not backed because we would ultimately line the garments like in a traditional way. And I will tell you that it took a long time for me to even finally gather up the nerve to start cutting into these, because what I started, we strung them all over the studio here. And so I was just surrounded by this beauty that were like paintings floating in the space around me. And I think a number of times I would mention to everyone who was involved in the project, I just needed to spend time with them. They were so beautiful. I would let each panel sort of speak to me. And the goal was to do a few and then have one of the most daunting parts of the collaboration was I had to show the few pieces that we made to the quilters. And I watched the Zoom of that experience. And I was holding my breath and sweating as I would hear what was basically a positive response, but it was so truthful. Another thing that was so beautiful about working with these women was it was just everything was so transparent and so authentic that there was no need to feel something didn't work if it wasn't something that everyone liked. I remember as you were discussing what you had seen in those first images, I heard what you liked, what you didn't like, what worked best, what you thought was great, and that then informed the rest of the pieces because my goal was just to find the best way to show the artistry of the panels, and then finish a garment. So that's what we do here. Is it's all about using every bit of it. The scraps that were not used from the panels became bucket hats, became totes. That's the joy of it. That's the fun of it. And laying down classic paper pattern pieces, we use flat patterns. So we literally would lay them out. I'd be on the floor and I would start to assemble what looked like a coat, what looked like, I would pick the silhouettes that we make that had the largest pattern pieces so that we could get the most in. And then it started to become kind of like I don't want to say that became sort of a dance. I'd see certain panels and start to think that would be amazing. That would be an amazing lapel on a jacket. That would be, wow, that would be a fantastic, the same way Mary Margaret said earlier that sometimes when things hit you and you let the inspiration in, and seeing the beautiful green of the trees against the brown of a house, I would sit with panels that were just sheer beauty, and I would lay them on different fabrics that we use. And I'd say, wow, that looks amazing next to a vintage army pant. Maybe we can make a pant just out of that, or lay it next to a piece of upcycled denim and decide, well, let's make a pair of pants that one leg is fully panels and the other is repurposed denim. What? Oh. So
I have no idea where that sound is coming from. I don't see anybody else's microphones on. Sorry
but
about
maybe, I remember Mary Margaret and Emma and Stella May, when you first saw the pictures of the pieces, I mean, I was terrified. I was terrified to I wanted to make sure that I had made you proud and use these pieces. I was worried that they're going to say, what did Greg do to our quilts? What did he do? And I was pleased that you enjoyed the process.
That's great. It's beautiful. I also posted, if anybody's interested to see more quilts from the G's Bend Quilters, I did post a link to their Etsy shop. And if you so desire to buy one, you may do so as well. Quick question, Greg, are all your pieces one of a kind? With the
Every single piece is one of a kind, even though with the second round, the styles will be similar because that's what we've offered our retail partners, but each one will still be one of a kind. And that's sort of the ethos of what we do in general at Greg Lauren. And that's why the collaboration was so perfect. Every single piece is its own unique piece of artwork. Even if you that was actually one of the great things, was to see them all at Bergdorf Goodman. And Jonathan, you could speak to this. And I know Claudia, who's one of the quilters we work with, got to see it in person. Mary Margaret came to Los Angeles and was part of the photo shoot and the casting process and the styling process. I mean, that was amazing. And I think that was one of the most fun aspects of the collaboration, was seeing you give your thoughts on what pieces came to life best on certain models, what you liked with what. And it was interesting. I got off my train of thought, but I was saying that seeing all of the collection when it was done together, it was amazing, because there were pieces that were the same silhouette, but when you looked at them quickly, you had no idea they looked like two completely different pieces because of the artistry of the quilts and the personality of each quilter that was in those pieces.
That's wonderful. That's great. So this question is actually for the G's Bend ladies. Do you ever wear any of the pieces that were turned into clothing? Someone just wanted to know, and I think it's an interesting question.
The ones that Greg made?
Uh-huh.
No. No. We have experience in wearing patchwork pieces though,
Yeah.
because at some point that's what we had to wear.
Yes.
So and then again, we covered up under the patchwork pieces because usually our old clothes were made out of our old quilts were made out of our older clothes. So yeah.
That's great. And then a couple people wanted to understand how you recruit young people to teach them quilting. And then do you work together for a while before they go off on their own? What is the process?
For me, working with my niece, it was a long process because she would get depressed, like, I can't do it. It's not good. it was like when Esther's shop face opened up that she really started working and said, I can do it. It made her feel proud, but you have to just continue with them and be patient and just say, you can do it.
Well, my daughters, they always wanted to learn to make quilt and learn how to quilt. So they would just ask me the story about how I came up, and I told them the way I came up, about how my mom and grandmother taught me how to make quilt and quilt the quilt. And so I would sit down and talk with them about making the quilts and quilting. And we would sit down as a team. And I have 3 girls, and we would sit around the table and maybe cut fabric. Sometimes they said, well, Mom, I want to do it like you, I just want to rip it. And so they would rip the fabric, and then some try sewing with their hand and some on the machine. And we all would work together until we, made a quilt. So they still, like making quilt. They still into making quilt, and I'm teaching my grandchildren also how to, make quilt.
Well, my story is totally different. My mother used quilting and sewing as a punishment for me. I grew up with a boy, so I was always in trouble. And my daughter grew up with a gang of boys, so she was always in trouble. And my son, I only have 2 kids, so my son, and you gotta love your kids, right? Okay. My daughter actually knows how to sew and quilt on hand and on sewing machine. She will not do it. Not for anything in the world. She will not do it. My son, on the other hand, this boy will get the sewing machine. He'll get a thimble. He'll get his needle and thread. He will sit right there. He's made several quilts, and he's actually quilted one. I had to hem it, but he quilted them. And he sold his first quilt in September.
Wow.
So that was a great encouragement for him. He's got 3 more made. I haven't even started on those yet. So, but yeah.
And how long does it typically take for each of you to make a quilt? And do you work on one at a time or multiple quilts at one time?
Me, I work on multiples. I'm sorry. My train of thought is very short. So I work on several at a time. Actually, I got 1, 2, 3. I think I got 4 going right now. So yeah, several.
And I'm like Mary Margaret. I work on several at a time. I will start this one, and I'm like, okay, I'm stuck there with what I want to do with this one. So I will start a whole different one, and I work on it for a while. So I'm jumping from one to the other until I'm satisfied, and then I will finally put one together. So it's a process, and I love doing that because it's challenging. You can think about what you may want to do with this one, and then you turn all the way around, and what you wanted to do with that one, you will put it on to the other one. So that's make it fun. I mean, sometimes it just like a whirlwind, just turning in your head.
I usually do 3 at the same time sometime, but if someone asked me to do one, I would stop and complete that one.
Yeah.
But mostly I just get the ideas in my head and it just keeps spinning. Just like at night, sometimes I wake up, it's a whole new quilt just pops into mind. If I get up and set that pattern, I can do that quilt, but if I don't, it kind of leaves my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love doing 2 or 3 at the same time.
Oh yeah. It breaks it up. It breaks the monotony up.
But they are not the same.
Not the
Quilt
same
like you do it, it's
style.
gonna be different, quilt,
Yeah.
different style.
Yeah, different styles. all
I
the
cannot
time.
repeat that same quilt if I make it today or tomorrow and go do a different one. I can't repeat that same pattern. It will have the same color, but it may look slightly alike, but I can't do the same one over. It has to be different.
And
It
do you all,
depends.
when you're quilting, do you plan your ideas before you start, or do you just go by intuition as you're quilting?
Intuition for me. I mean, I never know what I'm gonna do, so it's just intuition. you know.
Sometime I plan, but it doesn't work out that way. I always turn it into something different.
And me, I'm a traditional gal. I'm traditional. I
Yeah.
like running the house. I want it planned out. And then sometimes, even with the best laid plans, they do go awry, right? So sometimes those plans do change.
Yeah. How about you, Greg? When you're planning your fashion pieces, do you ever just kind of take a pivot and go with intuition over kind of your plan?
Oh, absolutely. I think, especially early on, a lot of times pieces would inform themselves. I'd have no idea where it was going. And sometimes it would be the materials and the beauty and the imperfections that I would discover that would actually inform what I wanted to make out of it. And then midway through, it would turn into something else. It might have started off as a jacket, and then I realized, wow, that'd be a really great pair of pants. And then it's something that you feel, and I think that that's really more the artist side of me that gets to enjoy that, because you stay open to the inspiration throughout the process. Then if you're building a business and you're coming from a different approach, then what is equally exciting is trying to plan for the expected accidents and the magic. And that's different. And that's something that we do as well, where we might, have to make 50 one-of-a-kind pieces that all are inspired by the original first piece, and no two of those are alike. And it's exciting when we work from that approach. And sometimes a material that was designated for that group, I discover is much more suited for a different style or a different piece.
That's great. And I think that's a common to all creatives. As a maker myself, I'm a hot glass, and you think you have a plan. And then once you gather that glass on the pipe, sometimes it does not want to do what you hope it does. So I think that's a very common for creatives to make those pivots with intuition. So this has been a wonderful conversation. I just want to bring Amanda back up if I can, please. Great. I just want to take a moment to thank everybody. Mary Margaret, Emma, and Stella May, you three are truly gifts to the world with the beauty you create. Thank you for taking time today to share those process with us, as well as the collaboration that you did. Greg, thank you for pushing the boundaries of fashion and creating such an amazing opportunity for impactful collaborations that include equity and actually true collaborative efforts. And Jonathan, thank you for that beautiful words in the article that you wrote on this mosaic collection and collaboration. And Amanda, thank you for bringing equity to all who make through the work that you do at Nest. And I want to give Amanda a moment to also say some thanks if she would like.
Yeah, I mean, all the thanks goes to the speakers here on screen. Really, it's just been such a privilege for us. As I mentioned at the beginning, we were at the very, very early stages with Mary Margaret and Greg, just concepting the idea, and just to see how far we've come and the ways that we've learned and grown and become friends with each other. So just like where we started, where we are now, and just, everything to come, I think there's just so much excitement and momentum growing, and we couldn't have done it without everybody here. So thank you so much, for all of it.
Yeah, thank you. And wonderful thoughts in the chat. So we'll try to gather those and share with both you, Greg, and the G's Ben ladies, because I think it's always nice to see how much people love what you all have done, and encouraging you to continue this wonderful kind of work moving forward. The combination of craft and fashion is a natural, and it's just amazing to see what the results are that you all are realizing. So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to the community for amazing comments, questions, and listening to this program. We just really appreciate having you here. Again, it is recorded, and so we will be sharing the recording after. And if you're interested, you can check out our website for the article and more images of the pieces from the Mosaic collection. And again, Jonathan, Greg, Emma, Stella May, and Mary Margaret, and Amanda, thank you all so much for your time today and being part of this conversation, and for pushing the boundaries of fashion and craft. We really thank you for your work that you do.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.